Some people may tell you that you can't set boundaries with a narcissist because a narcissist doesn't respect boundaries. But this is not completely accurate. While it's true that a narcissist will not respect your boundaries, we can set boundaries with them. We just need to use a different approach. I'm Dr. Sharon Martin. I am a psychotherapist and the author of the Better Boundaries Workbook, and I want to share 3 tips with you for setting boundaries with narcissists. The first one is to focus on what you can control. A lot of the conventional advice about setting boundaries includes asking the other person to change their behavior. If somebody is doing something that's hurtful or disrespectful or impedes on your needs or rights, then you would ask them to change that behavior. And this is fine advice. It works really well with people who aren't narcissists. But here we need to change our approach. We need to say, instead, what is it that I can do in this situation to get my needs met? I can't rely on the narcissist to make the change. I'm sure you've tried this many times and found that it doesn't work. So I'm just going to cut right to the chase here and say, don't waste your breath asking them to change because it's not going to work. Instead, let me give you an example. This is an example that I've used in my book. If you have a narcissistic coworker who is, let's say, eating your food out of the communal refrigerator or taking things off of your desk or going through the papers on your desk, you can't just ask them to stop doing those things. Even though that would be a perfectly reasonable ask, it's not going to work with the narcissistic coworker. So instead, think about those situations and say, what is it that I can change about my behavior or this situation in order to get what I need here? So, for example, you might instead say, I'm not going to put food into the communal refrigerator. Instead, I'm going to either bring food that doesn't need to go in the refrigerator, or I'm going to bring my own cooler or my own lunch bag that's insulated so that I can avoid the situation where the narcissist can take my food. Likewise, you might have to take the things that are on the top of your desk and lock them up in your desk drawer. Things along this line. And what I want you to remember here is often these boundaries are things that feel inconvenient because they are, and they feel imperfect, again, because they are. Ideally, we would be able to ask somebody to change behaviors that the majority of us would find intrusive, offensive, disrespectful. But again, we have to be a little bit more creative and we have to think outside the box here and say, what is it that I can control? What are some imperfect solutions, some boundaries that I can implement in order to get more of what I need? So that's our first one. The second one is don't explain your boundaries. Don't explain your feelings about the boundaries or about the situation that has led you to need this boundary. Narcissists do not care about your needs and they don't care about your feelings. So by sharing those explanations and those feelings and those needs, all you are doing is giving the narcissist more information that they can use against you. It leads to arguing with you, more pushback, more reasons why they can't abide by your requests. So again, we want to avoid those situations by just accepting the reality of the situation, which is this person is not interested in your feelings or your needs. It's a sad realization and it can be hard to accept it, but when you do, it's really empowering, and it again allows you to change your approach to the boundary setting so that you're either keeping the boundary just very short, this is what I'm doing, no explanation, or you don't even say anything, you just change your behavior, you do that behavior, that boundary setting that's within your control without needing to say anything to them. You're just going to do it. We don't always need to explain the behavior or the boundary. And then the third one is try to anticipate the boundary issues that you're going to have with this person and then be prepared. Know how you're going to respond. Oftentimes, it's not that difficult to anticipate what the challenges are going to be because they're often very repetitive. And narcissists are fairly predictable in terms of the kinds of things that they are going to do to be hurtful and be disrespectful to us. So, if you know, for example, that your mother tends to criticize you every time you get on the phone with you, or that your sister likes to show up unannounced, use that information to come up with a plan. Figure out ahead of time, what are you going to do in those situations? Again, what is it that you can change about the situation or about your own behavior to make it better for yourself? Oftentimes, part of the boundary setting that we need with narcissists is to limit our contact with them, or sometimes avoid contact altogether if that's a possibility. But by being less available, responding less often, or not as quickly to them, making ourselves unavailable, declining invitations or asks from them, can be a really helpful boundary. And sometimes people forget that those are boundaries. They kind of feel like the ultimate boundary, but they're actually really important and really common boundaries that we need to use in our boundary setting toolbox with the narcissist, because they are so domineering and are so intrusive that often what we need to do is to be able to protect ourselves by spending less time with them or being less available for them and their needs. So I hope that those tips are helpful to you. What I want to just reiterate is that it's always going to be hard to set boundaries with the narcissist. So I don't mean at all that this is going to be easy for you. You also want to remember that it's an ongoing process. You don't just set a boundary once and then it's done. It's ongoing work, it's continual. So you're going to have to keep at it. And like I said earlier, you're going to need to understand and remind yourself throughout this process that changing yourself is hard, and sometimes it can just feel like, why does it always fall on me? Why do I have to do all of the changing and all of the work? But this is the reality of having a narcissist in your life, is that they are not going to be the ones who are going to do the heavy lifting in the relationship. They are the ones who are going to do all the taking. So try to be creative and try to figure out what the solutions are that are going to work for you, even though that they will be imperfect. Thanks for watching.